Completely
moment
agree with you.
the moment you're thinking about how you're pressing the buttons, it's like noticing the workings in a film. It's like seeing the boom mic
Yeah.
appearing.
This video is brought to you by Game Maker, the free, fast, and easy-to-use 2D game engine that helps power modern classics like Undertale, Hotline Miami, and Hyper Light Drifter. Starter templates, official asset bundles, and a wealth of tutorials are available to help bring your ideas to life. And you can export and share your game for free on all non-console platforms. But you don't have to take my word for it, I'm just some jerk. We have an actual bona fide Game Maker on hand.
Oh shit, that's me. Yes, I've been using Game Maker for a long time. It's probably the most powerful and easiest to use engine for making 2D games out there, suitable for both amateurs and hardcore coders, and with all the Steam and console integration stuff for when you're ready to start monetizing your hobbies. I used it to make my recently released game, Starstruck Vagabond, which has already delighted thousands of sci-fi cozy game aficionados, thanks to Game Maker being so bloody great.
Head on over to the Game Maker link in the description to begin your game development journey today.
Hello everyone, welcome to Windbreaker. I'm Yahtzee, joined as always by Jay and Marty.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey chat, what's the official term for a supposed to lose fight? We were talking about it before we went live, and none of us could think of what it's supposed to be called. You know, like the fight at the start of Final Fantasy II on the NES, where you were in a battle and you immediately get wiped, and then the actual story starts. Anyone? Okay, we'll leave you with that, because what we're actually talking about this week is 3D platforming in the wake of Astro Bot coming out on PlayStation 5, and by all accounts being a real breath of fresh air. I haven't played it yet. I'm actually installing it as we speak. I'm going to play it this afternoon. But Marty, you've been on it.
I've been under the weather the last couple of days, and this thing is the only thing in life that has made me happy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it has caused your disease.
I think no game in recent memory has caused me to have a shit-eating grin on my face for extended periods of time as Astro Bot has. And part of it is it's an expertly designed game, but then part of it is the latest in a long line of 3D platformers, which, you know, gun to my head, might be my favorite genre of games, and it might be the genre I think of when I think of video games. If someone was like, what is a video game? I think of a colorful character running around a 3D space, jumping and collecting things.
Oh, yes.
Were 3D platformers always your favorite genre, Marty?
I mean, not, I guess, when I was a child, because they didn't exist. But I think once the N64 came out and I played Mario 64 and then Banjo-Kazooie afterwards, I think it became my favorite genre. Yeah,
Changed everything. Yeah,
changed everything, which has been a roller coaster ride with it, because it sort of peaked and then they were gone for quite a while, and then they've kind of come back in both the AAA and the indie space, which I'm sure will be.
There was a difficulty in the initial transition to 3D wasn't
Mm.
there?
There was, yeah.
Yes,
If you
there were a
weren't
lot
Nintendo, pretty
of.
much, yeah.
I mean, the 16-bit platform makers were basically felt like they could just continue as they had begun. But it turns out platforming gets a lot more complicated in 3D space.
Mhm.
Oh, Nintendo had to recreate it. They designed the N64 controller specifically to work with Mario 64.
Yeah,
It's
which
Yeah,
is funny.
yeah.
Even
it's insane.
that, even when you go back and play Mario 64 with only the one analog stick, it's like, ooh, this simultaneously feels like fully fleshed out, and also, how did anyone do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like Super Mario 64, the story goes that Nintendo basically just were working on the proof of concept for like a year. It was just
Mhm.
Mario in a room with a rabbit to catch, and they iterated on that for a year before they were happy with how their platforming worked. A lot of platformers around this time didn't do that, and it shows.
That's
Hmm.
true. Also, today is the 25th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast coming out in the States, 99.99,
Oh, is there a
which
reason
means
you brought that up?
I really love the Sega Dreamcast, but also when you said some developers, sometimes the transition to 3D wasn't as smooth. Case in point, maybe some of the Sonic games that have had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite. Has Sonic like figured out 3D even today?
I really like Sonic Adventure, even though it is a very bad 3D platformer in my mind.
Yes.
And Sonic Frontiers, well, that was legally a 3D platformer, right?
Yeah. Okay. I guess the 3D platforming in Sonic Frontiers works a little better for me than most of it.
Yeah.
Although
Has Sonic figured anything out? Like it's
a lot
Sonic,
of
man.
3D Sonic games that people like cite as working went back to basically 2D platforming. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
the 3D platformers like Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Colors, a lot of that was either straight side-on 2D platforming, or it was just going down a path, going down a
Then it would
linear
transition
path.
and switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is something that
which is
games still
spiritually 2D
do.
platforming.
Like even the most recent Crash Bandicoot had a lot of the sort of the original DNA of the early, which were 3D, but felt more 2D-ish, like felt more corridored than a
Yeah,
more open Mario game. Same thing with a lot of those,
yeah.
3D Sonic games. Even Mario 3D Land and 3D World feel more kind of constrained than traditional
That's
3D
Yeah.
platformers.
that's the
I remember.
question, right? Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a more linear, like thought out experience, or do you prefer like more of an open world, level
Well,
based 3D platformer?
it's interesting because Mario covers all the bases. Land and world, as you say, were very much felt like they were built around 2D segments in spirit. Galaxy as
Mhm.
well, to a lesser extent,
Yeah.
and they were all about linear challenges. And then you've got the counterpoint being Mario Sunshine, Mario Odyssey, Mario 64, which was more about the open exploration maps,
Yeah.
Sonic Frontiers ish.
Mhm.
And that I would say that the open world map for platformers generally worked better in for the format. It was certainly the thing that Nintendo's shit like Banjo Kazooie and such like tended to gravitate towards.
Mhm.
I think if
I
you were
think
going to do like the linear stuff, you had to be like a Mario. You had to be prepared to
yeah.
put that amount of like design chops into it.
I think there's like something to be said for what makes those kind of more open 3D platformers tick. For me, they're more about collectathons than they are the straight mechanical
Yeah,
challenge, and I think
Mhm.
that the open world lends itself more to that and can give that kind of space to be able to look for these collectibles and pursue something over a longer distance rather than it being a point A to point B small mechanical challenge. You can spread those out along a wider axis, and I think that's what makes them tick for me.
I'll tell you what it is about open world for 3D platforming, because Sonic Frontiers reflects this pretty well, is that if you fuck up, or if the game decides arbitrarily that you fucked up, like a lot of Sonic 3D games tend to do, you just get dropped off into a different part of the open world and can turn around and go back and try again or do something else. You can't do that if it just drops you into a pit and then says, "What do you do that for, you idiot?" Smack. Back to the start with you.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
What kind of balls have you got to bring those sorts of skills to my lawn?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about not that exact example, but in so Astrobot has it has longer, beefier levels, and then it has sort of smaller micro challenges that feel like the little one-off planets in like Mario Galaxy, or even like those Sunshine levels where they take
Oh yes,
they take flood away from you.
the
Um,
floodless levels. Yeah.
the floodless
Yeah.
levels. And one thing about, and those are probably the toughest levels in Astrobot I've gotten to so far, are those ones. And so you'll fall, you'll die. There's no checkpoints in the level. But one thing it does is it instantly takes you back to the beginning, and the music keeps going. So it's not like you're stuck in this loop where you're listening to the opening 30 seconds of the song over and over and over again. The music just doesn't stop. So
Mm.
it doesn't feel like you're Groundhog Daying, but rather it feels like, oh, this is like part of what the game is. Like the game is encouraging you through the music not stopping and restarting to stay at it, which is something I
Yeah.
like. And it's kind of, I
That's
guess,
a beautiful, beautiful thing.
yeah, it reminds me a little bit of what you said about Sonic Yahtzee, of like, if you just fall off a thing, you can then choose, well, what do I want to do now? It's almost like you're a kid in a candy store, and every aisle's going to have something for you to get
We
excited
were
about.
we were talking about this previously before the podcast started about reminding the player about the game state and thinking of it as a a mechanical product rather than an experience. And music is a huge part of that. One of the things I've done in the past when I've been creating music for games is I try my best to make dynamic music systems that can shift between each area and the player's state, be it through death or combat, that they can flow naturally. Because if you, like you said, Marty, keep resetting or jumping between tracks, it can pull the player out and think, oh, this music's garbage, and then your player starts thinking, oh yeah, this is music, right? That's playing. Somebody made this. Oh, they chose to do this, and then you start thinking about how the game was put together, and it all crumbles. So yeah, it's super important. Tiny detail, but really, really important.
Mhm.
It's interesting that you noticed that the music doesn't restart. That's sort of the thing that you tend not to notice, and that's a good thing.
I really like the music in the game, and so it was just a thing when thinking about the various tunes. And I was on a specific level yesterday that I died probably like 2 dozen times on, and I was like, oh, well, that's a nice touch. Instead of me having to listen to the opening 20 seconds of the song over and over again, that I'm just listening to it in its entirety, and then it's after a couple minutes, it's restarting. And another thing, I mean, with those levels, I think one thing Astrobot does really well that I think the best 3D platformers do, even starting with Mario 64, is knowing when to kind of subvert expectations or just give you a different flavor or gameplay style. Like Mario had those short levels that were like races, like slides down. You're racing a penguin, or you're racing down Peach's slide, and so it wasn't just you doing the exact same thing over and over again. And I feel like Psychonauts is a game that does that really well. Every level feels like it has kind of a unique twist to it, whether you were
Yeah.
in a theater trying to change from a drama to a comedy, and that changes how the platform's going, or shrinking down into this like Napoleonic like miniatures war. And Astrobot does that too, where every level feels like you get a new power up that completely changes how you interact with the world, or there's like a new rule set to, oh, it does the Mario thing where, oh, there's certain platforms that will disappear and reappear every time you jump or on the beat. And so you have to kind of engage with the game in a different way than just running and jumping.
It's interesting to think of 3D platformers basically defining the hardware shift from no analog sticks to analog sticks, because right after that happened, 3D platformers just sort of stopped being a thing, at least in the mainstream sector. Started shifting more towards third-person action.
Yeah, why do you think that is? It could be the maturity of the perceived core audience was shifting to
That's
be more
true.
teenage.
Like most of
So that's where the
the
market went, maybe.
very dodgy early 3D platformers were mascot platformers.
Yeah.
Your old,
Yeah.
do you remember Croc?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Croc's coming back, remastered.
You're-
Everything that's old will be new again.
Oh, good old Croc.
Yeah,
I could-
it
the,
does. Oh, go ahead.
the odd duck out was Tomb Raider, which was
Yeah.
one of the early 3D platformers, but was a markedly different beast to a cartoonish mascot platformer. It was more in spirit of the Prince of Persia style realistic platformer or cinematic platformer,
Yes.
but in 3D space. And if you've gone back and played that recently, it kind of plays like dog shit.
The original?
Plays like
Yeah, where
absolute
you,
ass. It's terrible.
Yeah.
it's like you're using geometry for jumps. It's like, okay, I need to line myself up and go 2 steps
Yeah.
backwards and 1 step to the right. And
It's
it is funny.
Yeah,
It
in
did.
contrast to later games, you've got sort of like got a much more 16-bit era informed total 100% control over your positioning, angling, and movements, which is why it's so fiddly to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
line everything up perfectly. If you look at like the 3D platformer started working again when games like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time came about, and it became
Yeah.
more like parkour focused, where it would like fill in a lot of the blanks for you. Like if you walked off a ledge, he would spin around and grab the ledge before you fell off it.
Yeah.
So it was,
That's the difference for me. What are you going for? Like mechanical precision with like Tomb Raider,
Yeah.
which feels finicky for 99% of players, or are you going for game feel and having it work the majority of the time, but not really be kind of realistic,
Yeah.
and most of it's not up to the player? I
So
prefer
they had
game
to
feel,
put,
honestly.
Yeah.
They had to put the training wheels on because, of course, all the time they were making 2D platformers, the training wheels were sort of automatically on because there
Yeah.
was no concern about falling to the left or to the right of a ledge. You only had to make sure the ledge was above you or below you.
Mhm.
So
And
they
it
had
was
to
also-
compensate for the extra dimension, making things exponentially more complicated. Square cube law. That's why you can't have giant monsters. Look it up.
Square cube law, giant monsters.
Yeah, like you know those stories about how like a spider gets zapped with radiation and then becomes a giant spider? That wouldn't work. It would instantly collapse and die because
Poor
if
guy.
you increase the size of something from a horizontal perspective, it's like twice as big, but from a full volume perspective, it's like 1,000 times as big.
Yeah, Godzilla couldn't pump their own blood around their body because their heart would have to be twice the size of them or something. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, thank you, Shatank7170. If you double something in size, you multiply the volume 8 times. So
Get out of town.
it would be too heavy to support itself.
Tell me Godzilla ain't real.
And that's what the 3D engine does to platforming gameplay. It's twice as large and 8 times as complicated.
Yeah, that's a
And
great way of
those early games on N64, on PS1, even into the PS2 and GameCube, they were still like figuring the rules out. Like it felt like by the 16-bit generation, 2D platforming rules were kind of set in place. Whereas with 3D, it was like, well, we have to go back to the drawing board. And the PlayStation for the first couple of years didn't even have an analog stick, so you'd play a game like Mega Man Legends, which was a 3D game, but you'd be controlling it using the D-pad. So that was that was a very strange thing. But the Tomb Raider is an interesting example because I feel like Tomb Raider paved the way for a little bit of platforming to be in almost every game now. We get a little bit of platforming in Star Wars Jedi, and a little bit of platforming in Uncharted, and a little bit of platforming even in Doom or
in
Titanfall.
a very linear corridor climby sort of way.
where they didn't, like they very famously, I think it was one of the recent Call of Duties, they had I think a lot of people as well, but I call it context climbing. Camera. That kind of idea of you walk up to a wall and your character like shimmies up the side of it, and then you just get to the next level. Like that might as well be a door. Like you're wasting my time.
It's just contextual button prompting your way up the wall.
It's like the Star Wars, the Jedi Survivor, the one that came out last year, had those occasional like challenge rooms where you'd go into like a force void, and you'd have to do like a really intense parkour challenge in a place without a ground, without a floor.
Yeah,
and I feel like that felt very much like separate from the game. That was like, you guys over there make a cool parkour challenge, and we'll just stick it off into this, nether realm over here.
Bit contrived, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, fun, but yeah,
because you know, people who came to Jedi Survivor for adventure, exploration, and combat might not necessarily be there to have their parkour skills tested as well, which is more about
sure.
timing, positioning, and awareness of one's position in 3D space. Who was the first genius to come up with the idea of putting a visible shadow under you in a 3D platformer? I wonder.
Mm.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
There
It's
should
those
be a
little things
statue to
that
them somewhere.
it's those little things that you're like, oh, this is. I didn't realize if this helps immensely with me, being confident of where I'm going to actually land.
Yeah. It doesn't really make any
Uh,
sense when you think about it, but it's like mechanically it helps the players so much that it's overlooked.
yeah,
And like we do stuff like that all over the place in games. And it's a necessity really. The games get so much harder if we don't skew those rules.
Hmm.
you earlier, Jay, you mentioned collectathons, and
Yes.
that is, I think that's almost one of the things that when 3D platformers were kind of having their heyday in the mid to late 90s, they hit a point where it's like, ooh, that's too much. And that might have been like Donkey Kong 64, or that might have been Banjo Tooie, where it was like, okay, this got too cumbersome. Like, it's no longer fun to enter a level and collect things because there are so many things to collect. That's a little bit how I feel about Mario Odyssey, that there's like 1,000 moons. And I'm like, well, it doesn't feel as satisfying to get a one of 1,000 moons as it did one of 120 stars.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
because
it's that balance with,
every
like,
time you picked up a star, there had to be a long fucking sequence and animation and like crescendo and Mario dancing around it.
yeah,
And I, for one, prefer the truncated format in Odyssey, where they just say, "Yeah, you found a moon, move on." There's another
yeah.
moonlight right next to you. Might as well.
Yeah, I mean, like Mario, yeah, pulling you out of a level after finding one is like that's like a no of being like, well, just I wanted to keep
Yeah, I
exploring.
think
I
that was
wouldn't
a
have touched
technical
this thing if I did.
limitation on 64's
Yeah,
part. For
Yeah.
me,
yeah,
I feel like the problem that I had with Odyssey, I love Odyssey by the way. It's one of my favorite Mario games. But I think with collectathons and collectibles, for me, they have to be a visible goal in the sense of if I walk into a level and you're given a goal, you can get X amount of moons or stars from that one goal. Where it really turned off for me was when I went to Peach's Castle and I spoke to the achievement toad and they were like, here's 10 moons for these things you didn't know you did. And there's more. I'm not going to tell you what they are though. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I want to walk into a
Yeah.
level and know what my goal is. I don't want to like have to fanny about with all that stuff.
Back
the
smacks of Beyond Good and Evil. Hey, we found all these pearls
Here's
in
a
this
bunch
room.
of pearls. Yeah.
Here's
because we didn't have
fucking
enough
30
time
of
to like
them.
create the gameplay
Well,
based around.
and I think with Odyssey, it's not the case that they didn't have enough time. I think it's because they were just like, we want to hit an arbitrary number of moons, so it sounds impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe they should have just done a separate achievement system like every other game.
Or just not
Astro
done it
Bot,
at all.
yeah. Astro Bot does that in a really good way, where every time you enter a level, you can just hit pause and it'll show you, okay, you have silhouettes of there's 6 bots you need to find, and then there's little gold things around certain ones that mean they're the ones who are like costumed, because you could find like regular ass bots or a bot where you're like, oh, it's Nathan Drake from Uncharted or Kratos from God of War or anything like that.
Oh
And
god,
then,
fucking PlayStation All Stars.
oh my god, but
flashback.
the deep cuts are part of the thing. I don't think you have as strong of a relationship with old PlayStation games as I do, but like seeing blasts from the past of like PS1 forgotten RPGs getting a little character in here, I was like, oh, this is so nice. But anyways, shows them in the menu, and if there's 3 puzzle pieces to collect in a level, it has their silhouettes, and if there's a warp exit, it has a silhouette for that, and they're all sort of displayed chronologically. So if you get to the end of a level and the second bot isn't filled in, you'll know, oh, it was somewhere between the first one I got and the third one I got. So when you go back through a level, you're very much like, okay, I can just focus on this part of the stage to see what I missed. Yeah, and that's been making me want to go back and being like, and knowing, oh, this level has a secret exit. I'm like, well, shit, I really want to poke around and figure out where the
How
secret
do you
exit is. So
encourage backtracking, right? How do you
Yeah.
how do you make people want to go back and give them the tools to be able to do so, rather than just it's arbitrarily in this massive area, right?
Mhm.
It's tricky because I kind of hate that. I've always hated the way Yoshi's Island introduced the concept of beating the level and then beating the level properly. I feel like in like Super Mario World, you finish a level with no mushrooms, you find no secrets, you get you go through the ending tape when it's like 2 inches above the ground. The game doesn't care. It's like, you finish the level, bully for you, carry on. But then from like Yoshi's Island onwards, they start to introduce this concept of, well, you did beat the level, but you didn't find the 5 red coins or the flower or the 5 little flowers, and you didn't beat the game without dying, so you haven't finished it properly yet. And that always kind of got up my nose.
That to an extent, if a level was red instead of like if the level on the map was red instead of yellow, that means it had a secret exit. So you beat it once, and I'd be like, well, shit. Now I want to go back and see where the secret exit is and what it might lead me to, which is usually more levels. Which, if you're liking the game, more levels is always a good thing.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, look
I
at
feel
that.
like if you can, what you're describing with Astro Bot, I'm really looking forward to playing it. I haven't played it yet, but it seems like those goals that it is giving you is something that is easily achievable as you play if you're exploring all aspects, right? But it's just framing the information in a way so that it's easily readable to understand a more specific area you need to go, rather than I'll replay the entire thing again, scouring every corner again, right?
Yeah, to me, it's almost like putting in an inherent, I wouldn't even say it's a difficulty slider. It is, even like the game, there's certain points in Astro where you need 100 bots in order to unlock the next thing. And I feel like that number is very much, if you're just going through the levels and just when you see something, you do it, you'll get to that thing. So it's almost like there's the main route if you just want to get through and see everything. And then all that other shit is there for these who are like, oh, I want to find the Vib Ribbon character. Which is me. That was me. I was sweaty, and I found the Vib Ribbon character. I was literally sweaty because I had a fever. It was great.
I remember Vib Ribbon.
You know who I found? I don't want to spoil it. I found Mr. Mosquito. Mr. Mosquito is that pervert who flies around and sucks blood on naked women.
I remember Mr. Mosquito as well. Mosquito.
That's why I just every time I would find one, I'm like, oh, I found him. This is great.
There was a period in the PS2's life when there were companies just buying up like armfuls of obscure Japanese games and like translating them and chucking them out onto shelves. And there was Mr. Mosquito was one of those, but there was a lot of fucking dross came out of that process.
Do you think a lot of the appeal of Astro Bot is its celebration of just games and the art form? Do you think that's what makes it attractive? You know,
partly.
Well, I would have said the same about Sonic Generations, and that game's shit.
I guess, yeah, you still have to build a good game around that, right?
And what's really makes it feel really shit is that its air of self-satisfaction.
But the thing is, with Sonic Generations, it's more of a celebration of Sonic, and Sonic is shit. So
yeah,
this is more of a celebration of, you know, games and PlayStation and
history.
You know, history.
It reminds me a lot of in that way. It reminds me a lot of Smash, Smash Brothers, in that it is this like clearly, lovingly rendered celebration of an entire gaming company, but at the same time, it's also a really good game.
Okay, but is it just that it's a good game that means it works where PlayStation All Stars failed?
I mean, I think the main thing is I think Astro Bot is an exceptional 3D platformer that happens to have all of that TLC to PlayStation history.
Okay.
Whereas PlayStation All Stars was
right.
Yeah, and the genre. Whereas PlayStation All Stars was a pretty mediocre Smash clone that occasionally referenced.
Exactly. Astro Bot doesn't feel like them trying to capitalize on something that is popular and trying to do their own spin, whereas All Stars felt like them going, Smash Bros sold well, we can do that. This is like, we are making a 3D platformer that is also a celebration of games and what we've done and where the industry's gone and stuff like that. I think it's a combination of those things.
It's also the 30th anniversary of PlayStation. So, like, it kind of feels like their way of celebrating that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to come back to was you mentioned like indie games have embraced platforming.
Yeah, we barely talked about them. Yeah,
we haven't seen in a long time, which I agree with. And you know what's what I'm appreciating is the way platforming shows up in indie games is that it's platforming that actually calls for skill on the player's part. Because the platforming in the AAA model, as we've discussed, is your context climbing, your corridor climbing, which is mostly just point towards the next contextual button prompt and press the button. Whereas in the indie spheres, there's some interesting experimentation in the world of traversal-focused games going on. Just look at games like Neon White and, to a lesser extent, what was that game we played, Marty? That was the first-person parkour game where you were a Scottish man.
Angerfoot?
Yeah, no. It was like a traversal focus. You were in hell, and you were trying to run out of hell.
Was it Hellfoot? Anger Kick? I know the one you're talking about. It was like Neon White, but in
based games have you guys played?
A weird
Kick
amount?
Bastards. Kick Bastards. It was called Kick
Bastards, yeah.
But also, yeah.
Recently you've had Demon Turf, Hat in Time, the Spark trilogy, Penny's Big Breakaway, which came out a few months ago, which is like just movement centric. Like these are games where it's like movement is expression, and the whole thing in this game is how it feels to move and sort of the mastery of like almost built for speedrunners.
So AAA games don't seem to like just picking one thing to focus on. It's all about the broad experience,
mass
the
appeal,
open world, the 500 different mechanics. Whereas indies these days, with the increasingly low barrier to entry for game development, seem much more inclined to really explore a single mechanic. And that's why the platformers have come back in a big way.
Which comes to difficulty for me. A lot of AAA games don't like their games being hard and exploring a mechanic to its fullest ability because they're trying to appeal to, people who have kids and don't have time to smash their head against one level for 5 hours, right?
Unless they're just making another Souls-like knockoff.
Yeah.
Hey, press dodge just before you get hit. Then just do that forever.
Shocking. There's also the I feel like in the indie sphere there's also even like a little pocket genre of like very mellow, low-key, cozy platformer collectathons. And
what are you thinking of?
A short hike.
Oh yes.
And Little Gator Game, which is pretty much just more a short hike.
Europa coming out soon.
Yeah, Europa, very much so. Yeah, where it is maybe that's just the nature of the industry, that like genres are going to collide, and like something that's cool over here is gonna pop over here. Like I'm sure if there's not already like a roguelite, I don't know if roguelite platformer could really work, because I feel like platforming is like the thing that needs to be kind of bespoke and like hand curated, right?
Yeah, you need to have like a sequence of platforms to form a challenge. You can't really procedurally generate that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting how like we said, it seemed to, and maybe it was because like the PS2 rolled around in that era, like you mentioned, Jay, like other games became the popular things. Like the popular games were more mature games. That was Grand Theft Auto, and then the rise of Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed, and sort of like, oh, these are what video games are. They are rated M for mature.
Yes.
And I don't know if it was until developers who grew up playing the platformers ended up becoming the developers themselves, the indie devs who are like, well, I just want to make a 3D platformer about a yellow taxi that goes vroom.
Yeah, so that's how it works. That's why there's so many indie games modeled on the PS1 style graphics these days, because we're at the 20-year nostalgia wave period.
Yeah.
It's been almost exactly 20 years since that specific era of 3D platforming. So
we've spoken about this before. It makes me so worried about, like, in another 20 years, are we going to get some horrible Genshin, like, gacha game?
We miss gacha games.
Yeah, don't want it.
Well, if the 20-year nostalgia rule is a hard and fast model, then the next wave is going to be for cover-based Gears of War style shooting, I think.
Oh no!
But if you look, last week I was playing Space Marine 2, and that's immediately what I thought of. It's like, people are liking this, and I know why. It's because it's making them think of Gears of War from 20 years ago.
I don't want to go back. I think cover-based shooting is a shit system, and I'm so glad we've graduated from it.
You don't like cover shooters?
I hate cover shooters. I think they are bland. I think they lock you into specific gameplay moments. I think Gears of War was good because of its aesthetics and its story rather than its shit
Right.
cover-based
Yeah,
game. I hate cover-based shooters.
I remember in like when we were in the depths of cover-based shooting being like the huge genre. I remember every time I'd walk into a room and it would just be filled with what were obviously chest-high walls intended for cover shooting, and I would sort of mentally roll my eyes and think, well, I guess we know what's happening here.
Squirrel with a Gun. We were playing on Yahtzee Tries last week, and you walked into that room, and there were chest-high walls, but for a squirrel, just like in the room. And I was like, I hate this. This is like my worst nightmare.
Space Marine 2 isn't cover based, but it really feels like a sort of Gears of War-esque thing, even though
you even weapons, the color palette.
They're Space Marines, right? They've got that build and that energy.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like as much a melee fighter as it is a shooter.
Yeah.
But yes, there's that. Shall we go to super chats? There's a few to get through, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure folks will have a lot of different thoughts on this that we can go on tangents to.
Okay. Starting with Dr. Theo, who gave $5 and says, I'd love a game like Little Nightmares, but it's a 3D platformer in that kind of world instead of puzzle platformer.
So
what I tend to think of as the Limbo, like the side-on, keep moving to the right until we tell you to stop platformer, is more suited to when you're trying to do a more narrative-focused experience, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because you got a lot more control on where the player goes. If that was in a 3D world, it would feel a little bit silly. I think it would feel like American McGee's Alice.
Yeah, and those games,
suddenly when it becomes much more gameplay focused, like it would in a 3D platforming world, it feels less narratively impactful.
Yeah, and the moments that stick with me in Limbo and Inside and Little Nightmares and any game like that are the very scripted, authored moments where it's like,
when you pull the leg off the spider in Limbo and then use the spider's still alive body as a platform.
Yeah, and if it was 3D and you had the sort of freedom of movement and everything, it'd be harder to kind of script those exact things. That being said,
pulling the leg off the spider, it would be like the Bowser boss fight in Mario 64.
Yeah, he's throwing him, spinning him.
Just grab the leg and swing the spider around your head like a cowboy.
I spoke to this in my episode on death, and Little Nightmares 2 being a huge example in that episode. I think that the fact that it was trying to be a puzzle platformer was a huge contributing factor to why none of the horror stuck with me and why death became meaningless, because they were respawning you as if you were playing a platformer, but trying to do it in a narrative horror way, and it just completely took out of the entire experience.
Because most of the time, the jump scares would just take you completely by surprise. Like a thing would come out and just eat you instantly, and you had no way of predicting it. And then it would just reload, and all the tension was deflated.
Mm-hmm. And that happens repeatedly in like nearly every single scene you go to, and it becomes meaningless. Death becomes meaningless. Fear just completely evaporates, and you're like, well, then why am I playing? Right? Like,
It is interesting, though, that it feels like almost all of the games we mentioned, whether they're AAA, whether they're an indie, like a 3D platformer is associated with bright, colorful, cheery worlds that'll have the occasional haunted level, like Banjo-Kazooie and Mario have the haunted levels. It is interesting that there's like an indie game called Pumpkin Jack where you play as like a pumpkin head dude. And I guess Elpie was kind of gross. Right, but it's just weird that like it doesn't feel like no one's really explored like 3D platforming in a
spooky setting.
In a spooky setting, there's action.
It's not necessarily spooky. What's the? I can't remember the full name. The last word in the name is Regalia.
Oh, Pseudo Regalia. Yeah,
Pseudo Regalia is like not extremely bright, and it has this kind of gothic, I guess, and kind of bunny girl thing. It's a weird aesthetic. And I agree. I want to see the genre explored in different kind of thematic ways.
I think 3D movement with full camera control sort of inherently goes against a spooky atmosphere. I mean, the successful horror games are always your Resident Evils and your your Silent Hills that either had fixed cameras or lazy chase cameras that didn't feel like. Because there's a bit early in Silent Hill 2 when you're going through the forest and it switches to like a camera like watching you through the trees, and it feels. It doesn't feel like you're in control. It feels like your camera is like another entity that's watching you.
Yeah.
And that,
which I like.
But if you could control the whole camera, it would feel much more utilitarian, I suppose. Probably why I've got low hopes for the Silent Hill 2 remake.
I was about to say, we only have to wait a month to see what it's like to control the camera in that scene. Pseudo Regalia is a good example, though. I like the atmosphere in Pseudo Regalia is very much like sad. It's almost like a cross between like Eco and like a Demon Souls level, where it just feels like an empty, hopeless, dangerous castle, which I think is cool.
Yeah. There we go, chat. As your challenge, we're looking for a full control 3D platformer that has genuinely horrific and nightmare vibes.
Voodoo Vince. That's Stray Sheep.
Okay.
Still instantly. Yeah.
The book der Herr der Dunkelheit gives €2 and says, what offers the Fire Link that Windbreaker doesn't? Other people that aren't me, I think, is what Fire Link has.
Still me. This is we talk about multiple. Was there? I don't know if this was supposed to be a goof. Is there a goof? Because the Fire Link, it feels like this question is supposed to be a goof that I missed. Fire Link just talks about a bunch of random topics, but more random news. Like I'm sure tomorrow Sony's going to announce the PlayStation 5 Pro, so I'm sure on Wednesday we'll talk about why the hell does this thing exist. There you go.
There you go. Cree gives $2 and says, I'm in a scary ass dentist appointment. Send love.
That's a good setting for a 3D platformer. Wait,
are you
Psychonauts was their first level like a dentist office in Psychonauts?
Are you listening to this while a dentist is work on you? Is he using the drill that goes wee?
Oh no, I don't like that at all.
I hope so. I hope it hurts.
I bet he's doing horrible things to your teeth that make sounds like this.
Thank God Yachtzee's mic can't pick that up.
Corvus Vocatio gives $10 and says, got nothing to add for the topic this week since platformers aren't my thing. So here's $10 for you, gents. Happy Monday.
TY.
Thank you.
And then The Bad Thing gives 10 New Zealand dollars and says, hey all, since there was Kojima talk the last few weeks, have you heard about the ideas Kojima wanted to include in MGS 1, 2, 3, and 4? The ideas he had were wild. Glad his team reined his ideas in. Were we talking about Kojima?
I feel like we talk about Kojima pretty often, so
yeah,
we talk about Kojima most episodes.
Yeah.
The one wild idea that I know got cut from MGS4 is that originally that was supposed to end with Snake and Otacon getting executed by firing squad.
I would have loved that.
Wow.
But Kojima's team basically rebelled and said, we are not ending the series like that.
Oh, that's really funny.
That's so metal.
I'm not sure what the crime was.
I mean, I think they do a lot of war crimes, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how you play the game.
That's true. Maybe you do very few war crimes.
What if you just knock everyone out?
I feel like that's still a war crime. Like I snuck into somewhere I wasn't supposed to be and I knocked you out. Yeah.
Espionage is inherently bad, right?
Not as bad as murder, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah. Hey, espionage ended the Second World War.
Yeah. That's fair.
I'm glad that Otacon and
actually
Snake
wasn't it a lack of espionage that ended the Second World War? Wasn't it famously an Italian man who pretended to be a spy who wasn't actually a spy? I won't get into this. It's a huge thing.
Well, British intelligence were able to trick Hitler into thinking the Normandy landings were going to happen
because of this Italian dude.
We're going to come from the Mediterranean rather than the English Channel. So they were able to ensure the resources were divided.
Yeah.
So which is one of the reasons why the Allies won the Second
One
World War.
One of the many reasons.
Yes.
Because I think another huge aspect to why World War II ended was nukes. But, that's...
Which made Godzilla can't exist, according to
Oh my God.
Nukes, the Normandy landings, the Russian front, all of those things, well, Hitler being an insane asshole, those were all the things that meant Germany weren't going to win. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, Yahtzee, A Kotaku reviewer for Star Wars Outlaws said staring at a detailed wall texture was the most interesting part of the game. Sound familiar? Certainly does, Alex Armstrong. That was a bit from my Destiny 2 review from years and years and years and years ago.
Wow.
In which I went on a sort of reverie examining a wall texture and realizing that I couldn't see where the pattern repeated, and it looked like there were like two different textures over it. And it looked like someone had probably put a lot of work into it. These days, I guess there's probably a lot of AI being used for that sort of thing.
What was the last game you stared at the wall at?
I've got mine.
Well, the last texture that impressed me.
I've got mine.
What is it?
Which is Red Dead Redemption's 2 mud.
Oh, that was
The
good
mud in Red Dead 2
right.
is insane.
That was good mud.
I guess I usually push text floor and wall textures out of my mind these days because I know most of them just come from online libraries or AI.
Sure.
But now that you mention it, I remember being impressed by the sand physics in Black Myth Wukong. Because there's a sandy desert level, and if you run through like deep sand with like your staff sort of dragging along the ground, it leaves a furrow in the sand that looks pretty cool and realistic.
My dad did the same thing, trudging through the snow.
I remember thinking, I'm going to run around in a circle and make a great big penis out with my sand trail.
Astro Bot does a cool thing where it oftentimes will just dump a bunch of small objects into whatever area you're in, and it'll be like a bunch of apples or a bunch of gems, and they all just react with their own physics. And so I'll just run around and be like, I'm going to do a spin attack in the middle of a bunch of apples and see them all fly away. It's very satisfying.
And it's also very hard to do. The game I'm working on, we're currently working on physics for our objects, and it's harder than it.
You're gonna see this Astro Bot shit and be like, God damn.
Oh, I'm sure I'm going to be very impressed with Astro Bot. I was even the tech demo version of it, I was blown away by. So
yeah,
looking forward to it.
Can't you just download a physics engine? Isn't that how it works?
Yes, you can. If you want them to do specific things and interact with multiple players in a multiplayer game, then it gets a bit more complex.
Okay. Just Existing 45, member for 7 months in Tip Jar, and Ryan Betts, member for 7 months in Tip Jar. The 7-month Tip Jar pals next to each other there.
Oh, the Tippy boys.
And then Elena gives €5 and says, what happened to the episode How to Not Do Relationships in Games? I can't find it.
Oh. Well, we did
that
that
one of
back
ours?
at the Escapist, right?
Was that a Windbreaker?
No, that was back at the Escapist, I think. I think Catherine was on the cover, because I think it was shortly after I played Catherine.
I feel like we might have covered this topic in a few areas. I did a semi-ramblomatic on the subject of friendship relatively recently as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Please clarify. Anyway,
I found it. I already. It was back at the Escapist.
All right.
It's here.
Corvus Vocatio, welcome to Tip Jar. And then Fox D gives $5 and says, Sonic 3D always struck me as the genesis of the traversal game rather than a platformer. Less Mario and more recent Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a platformer, at least the originals.
Yeah. I do always feel like Sonic, especially 2D Sonic, and even 3D, I guess, feels different to me than Mario, because with Mario, it always feels like I am in control over what he's doing, whereas with Sonic, a lot of times you'll just hit a boost and I'll be like, Jesus, take the wheel. Please don't drop me into a spike.
Oh God, Sonic 3D Blast. Take it away. Take it away. It offends my eyes.
Talking about 3D games that do not work. They tried.
Yeah. Wasn't it, I think it was Titus that made Sonic 3D Blast. For probably one of the reasons why you don't hear from them much these days.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it is interesting. I guess, do we consider swinging around New York City to be 3D platforming?
I think of it more as traversal, as Fox D says. Like the superhero traversal game is its own thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a separate thing, I think.
Platforming for me is about precision. I don't think Spider-Man traversal calls for much precision.
No,
just
it has.
Sure you're near a building and press the web swing button again. That
game feel we were talking about doing those adjustments and stuff like that. I was doing Spider-Man fingers while I was thinking about
Yeah.
swinging. It has way more of that game feel to make it a smoother experience, which I think in a cinematic superhero traversal game works perfectly, but it doesn't really rely on that precision like Yahtzee was saying.
Anyway, Just Existing 45 gives 10 Canadian dollars, says Astro Bot has been a breath of fresh air and joy after emerging from a quagmire of Souls-likes. Challenging in parts, but so very enjoyable, genuine, happy vibes. And as always, Yahtzee is the GOAT. How
Oh my
dare
God.
You're
you?
the goat.
Meh.
You're the
I
goat.
I'm not a farm animal.
I do. I'm glad you're enjoying Astro Bot Just Existing. I'm also enjoying it.
Mm,
Also,
spoilers. I haven't started it yet.
Red Hot Smasher. And I
You
just
all
looked
set
it up.
my
Correct.
sights too high.
Traveler's Tales made Sonic 3D Blast. The Lego.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
what did Titus do then?
I don't know.
I remember
Most of
them
the
from
programming
Titus
files.
the Fox and a bunch of like low budget crap.
Oh, Titus the Fox.
Anyway, Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, despite Spark the Electric Jester being based off Sonic, it had combat mechanics and Kirby power-ups. Shame the sequels boil down to just get to the end.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well,
that
that's
was
Sonic in a nutshell, isn't it? Just get to the end.
Yeah, the Spark series. They the Hidden Gem crew just did 1, 2, and 3 over not 3 consecutive weeks, but I think Casey played them over his 3 weeks of Hidden Gems, and it was interesting to see how that, because it's like a solo dev, I believe, and it's interesting to see how the first game starts as like it almost feels like the evolution of platforming throughout the course of a trilogy of games, and by the end of it, it's like a pretty interesting 3D Sonic clone that people seem to really like. There you go.
Take it.
Ardamore gives $4.99 and says, I really liked the PlayStation crossovers in Astro Bot, which is not something I like normally. What do you think this game does differently? Man, you people are all setting my expectations way too fucking high for this game. I'm going to be looking for things to hate about it now.
Oh, sure. Which is fine. You'll hate it, I'm sure.
I'll probably think, what is this? A fucking Little Big Planet knockoff?
I was thinking about the same thing too, because at the same time, I've been like, I am vehemently against, not vehemently. If you want to buy Funkos, you buy as many Funkos as you want. I personally find the whole Funko experience to be like an affront to art. And I don't know why I don't feel that way about Astro. Like, because Astro is ostensibly doing the same thing, where it's like, here, take all these million different games you remember from the past 30 years, and we've Astro-sized them a little bit. And it feels like Funkos come from a place of commerce, whereas this comes from a place of like love and reverie, and you can sense that.
Yeah, they certainly hack those Funkos out on an industrial scale.
Yeah. And there's this Funko game that's coming out in like a week that's like, explore all your favorite properties like Jaws and Nope. And I'm like,
I thought that came out and it was garbage.
No, there was a Funko there was a Gears Funko game that came out called Gears Pop, I believe. That was a Gears Funko game. Yeah, it came out like 5 or 6 years ago.
Future generations are going to look back on us and Funko Pops the way we look back on tulip bulbs. In like the whatever
Danish went nuts. What was going on here?
Yeah, whenever that was. The Dutch, not the Danish. They're different.
Oh, my mistake.
The Dutch are in Holland.
Yeah, one's a pastry.
The Danish are in Denmark.
Apologies to everyone in Holland and in Denmark. I hope you're all doing well. Shout out to Honey Money. She's sweet as shit.
She's sweet as shit.
That's the other one. God damn it.
Same thing.
Ooh, she's coming.
I didn't say that.
No, of course I know that Sweden and Denmark are not the same country. But
make a video about it, Yahtzee, if you really know.
They're pretty close to each other, though. They're both considered part of Scandinavia.
That is true.
Tsunami Dusha gives $20. Good to see you back on track, Tsunami Dusha. Giving us $20 super chats with no text.
You're my hero, Tsunami
My
Dusha.
hero.
And then Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, not just DK64, Crash 4 is a collectathon from hell.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like I could get through a lot of Crash without having to engage with the collectathon stuff, whereas it feels like DK you don't have to. That being said, Crash Bandicoot has one specific level near the end. It was like Cortex's castle. That is just the most pain in the ass level I've ever played in a game. Like
Oh, great.
whatever the opposite of a challenging level that you want to keep replaying is, it's that. It's something that feels like it is actively sabotaging your enjoyment.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
With the way
Fucking
Toffee is attacking that shark, it looks like Toffee is a hand puppet that Yahtzee is like mimicking a dog biting a dog.
The two of them talk. It really does.
It looks like Yahtzee's puppeting a dog.
That is goofy as shit. I love it.
Oh no! Please don't fight. Anyway, yes. Mark Nevis gives £1.99 and says, "What's your favorite Dreamcast game?" Mine was PSO, standing for Fantasy Star Online, I believe.
Man, I had so many. If I'm gonna, I think probably my two favorites are Jet Set Radio, and then which I'm covering in this next one I'm covering in an upcoming episode of the archive is Skies of Arcadia, which was a air pirate JRPG, which is absolutely delightful and still holds up. And I wish they would put on a modern console that wasn't the GameCube.
Mine,
but I really had great fighting games too, Soul Calibur and Marvel vs. Capcom and Power Stone.
Power Stone is the one I was going to mention.
Yeah. Did you? I'm really looking forward to that Capcom collection where they're bringing that back, like that online, like that, fun as hell. Oh, did you see that?
Cool as hell.
Yeah,
I didn't realize Power Stone was in it.
Yeah, well,
much...
so they announced like a different collection. So they have the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that's coming out, and then they have another separate Capcom fighting collection that two of the games are Power Stone 1 and 2.
Gimme.
There's not much like Power Stone, is there? It's almost in a niche by itself. I think Sonic the Fighters was trying to be like Power Stone, but that wasn't very good.
Yeah, it's interesting because it just feels like it came out around the same time as Smash, and everyone just kind of copied the Smash model, whereas Power Stone was almost like a 3D brawler beat 'em up, but in that sort of fun 4-player party game.
Indie game developers, make the new Power Stone. That's your job now.
Go for it.
Go for it.
With Funkos.
Camden Empty gives $2 and says, "Why is Jermaine streaming from jail? Did Ludo snitch?"
Yeah, I've been put in jail, but they've let me keep the streaming setup, and I can still make Design Delve. So honestly, not much different than my usual day to day. All I do is just make Design Delve. Yeah, look me up. I'm
free meals a day.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
But no, as Eric has put in the background, I'm visiting a friend, so I'm in the States currently.
You're in Massachusetts.
I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And how do you remember that, Yacht? How do you remember where Massachusetts is?
I remember that it's right next to New York and above Connecticut and Rhode Island, because Connecticut and Rhode Island look like New York's little penis. And Massachusetts sounds like what normal words sound like when you say them with New York's penis in your mouth.
Yeah.
And if you want more of those thoughts on the rest of the states and you are a $10 Patreon member, you can check out Yahtzee's full video right now about how he has learned to memorize all 50 states using insanity like that.
I made a bonus video on a whim. I just had the idea in my mind, so I wrote it up and made it. If you remember my old Judging by the Cover series, it's got that sort of energy.
It's incredibly unhinged in the best way.
Yeah.
But it genuinely will help you remember what every state is. Because I certainly do now. Fox D gives $5 and says, "Yahtzee's objection to Yoshi's Island is mine to Red Dead 2. Either I beat the game or I didn't. Don't give me this 'you got bronze' BS. I'm done."
Did Red Dead 2 have...
I don't mind having like an extra challenge. I just don't like it when you finish a level and there's just this big empty void where the reward would go. And it says, "Where the fuck's this, idiot? Play the level again sometime, why don't you?"
What about being graded? What about like a character action game, a spectacle fighter where you're graded at the end of a level?
Quintuple hate that as well. Especially in Sonic games, because I never know what the fuck Sonic wants from me. I'll try to get through the level fast, I'll try to be impressive, but then at the end it just goes, "You got a D. Fuck you."
Yeah, it's information for me. It's if I understand what the game wants and I can't be bothered, then that's fine. Grade me with a D, whatever.
Yeah.
But if they can't communicate to me why I'm getting the grade I want or the collectibles that I didn't find, then I lose interest instantly. I'm like, oh, I don't care then. And then all future collectibles or challenges again mean nothing to me. So information.
See, in Devil May Cry, it's supposed to be about spectacle, about being impressive. But what it's really about is making sure you vary up what attack you're using from moment to moment. That's basically it. See, that's the trouble with game mechanics that try to rate you on an aesthetic level. I was talking about this when I was reviewing Crush House. It was like, sooner or later, you figure out how to game the system.
Yeah.
Especially in Crush House, where you just get maximum points by filming a pot plant for 3 hours on a Dutch angle.
We love it. That sounds like that's a film festival darling right there.
There you go. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, "Fun as Wario World is, its controls were very janky."
I actually played that for the
reference
first time.
there, Alex Armstrong.
Played that for the first time a few months ago on definitely not my Steam Deck. It was a weird Wario World was a weird GameCube Wario game developed by Treasure that never got ported anywhere else. And yeah, it did kind of feel like Treasure learning how to make a 3D game. I don't know if this was their first, but it does control a little wonky. I like Wario though. I like that he's just a big weirdo who loves gems.
Yeah, well, he found his oeuvre in the WarioWare series, if you ask me.
He found a lot of other
then he could like get into his own spirit and not just be Mario with the hue slider moved along a bit. He had to find his own niche and not just exist as a counterpoint to Mario.
Yeah.
That's what Waluigi needs. Needs to find his niche. Maybe he needs to there needs to be like a series of ice cream shop management simulators where you play as Waluigi.
And after he finds his niche, he should find his nephew.
Oh my god!
You guys get that? It was a little niche and nephew joke.
Yeah, that was super niche.
Yeah, took me a second. It's not really a pun, though, is it?
I don't think it was supposed to be a pun. It was a goof. It was a momentary goof that I hoped we would move on from, and we haven't, and it's making me very self-conscious.
I reckon we should discuss this more, honestly.
It reminds me of that joke. Reminds me of a joke, though. Norse God of Thunder picks up a lady in a bar, takes her home, does her like 50 times all around the house, up and down the kitchen worktop. And at the end of it, he gets up and yells in triumph, "I am Thor!" And his lady friend says, "You're Thor, I'm Thor, I can hardly pith now."
I think niche and nephew was better, personally.
Yeah, I think we've graduated into the podcast always getting into jokes at the end. And half of me is here for it. And half of
We're not at the end, though. We still have more. We have super chats.
I know. We got sub chats.
We got super chats.
I know a lot of jokes. I'm sorry. Alex Armstrong gives $2 again and says, "Infamous is finicky and we liked it. Sequel's better." Sure.
Did we say anything bad about Infamous?
Oh,
about it
being
a finicky control.
I think we were complaining about finicky things.
Yeah, and I guess that is...
It's not finicky the way Tomb Raider 1's finicky.
No. But it is in the way that a lot of times a sequel will improve upon its predecessor in so many ways, especially of that era from Assassin's Creed 2 to Uncharted 2. Just feeling like it is bigger and better in all ways.
Man, I want more Infamous.
Why?
I want less
really
of
like
Infamous Second Son and more of Infamous 2. In fact, I just want Infamous 2. I want Infamous 2 to be available to play on Steam. It is a crying shame that Horizon Zero Dawn and Ghost of Tsushima can be played on Steam, but not Infamous fucking 2. Or Bloodborne, while we're at it.
Maybe Infamous 2 will be a launch title for the PS5 Pro. $700 console.
The Infamous Collection?
Well, it won't be, let's face it.
Did you know they keep raising the price of PS5? Controllers are now $5 more. What? Is that legal?
That's the opposite of how it's supposed to work.
That's the opposite. Like, the reason the PS2 became so popular is because, like, at this time in its life, it was like $100 or $150.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this shit is still $500? Controllers are $5 more? What are we doing?
When did the scarcity of PS5 die down? Did that ever die down?
I think so.
Haven't heard about it lately.
Post-COVID. I think you could just go into stores and get it.
But then,
I had the...
Turning on the
Fair.
PS5 to install Astro Bot is the first time I've turned it on in months, I'm sure.
Oh, mine's a paperweight for sure. Yeah, I had the luckiest experience of getting a PS5 I think I've ever seen. I'm a pretty lucky person anyway, but it was Christmas Eve and I decided I wanted one, and on a whim. This was at the height of when nobody could get any. And I just went online to a store and they were like, "Yeah, we've got them available." I ordered one and then the next day they were all gone.
You jammy fucking sod.
Yeah, it showed. So this was the day before Christmas Eve. So on Christmas Eve, my PS5 showed up. I'm incredibly jammy. I'm like a luck machine.
Every time they announced more were becoming available, me and my wife had to camp out on the Walmart website and hope for the best.
I did it on
And
a
it
whim.
never worked. Never worked out. In the end, a viewer had to send me one.
Wow.
Oh wow!
It was pathetic.
Pathetic sent you one. Thanks, Pathetic.
Thanks, Pathetic.
No, I mean, it's
With a
pathetic that
$500
we,
dono.
a professional games coverage outlet, had to be sent a PS5 from a viewer.
I know it is a bit much.
Dale Mallows gives $2 and says, "Sorry, I farted. Can you repeat that?" And then gives another $2 and says, "You'll have to speak up. I'm wearing a towel."
I think that's.
So repeat what you said, yes?
Sorry, I farted.
No, before that.
I can't
say it
remember
louder
everything I've
because
said.
we're wearing a towel. I think you'll have to speak up on wearing a towel. That might be from The Simpsons.
Yes,
Good
that is
stuff.
from the Simpsons. Hjorth87 gives 50 Danish kroner, speaking of the Danish, and says, "I recall Contrast, a bit fun, a bit wonky, never finished it. They had some interesting ideas, but I got stuck on a collection side mission."
Yeah, that was Compulsion Games' his first game, who went on to make We Happy Few, is now owned by Microsoft, and they're working on South of Midnight. That was a cool 3D platform.
Oh, yeah,
it felt like a Tim Burton.
I can see why they're owned by Microsoft. Yeah, snap up that fucking We Happy View developer. They clearly know what the fuck they're doing.
I believe they snapped about possibly after this. This was a launch game for the PS4, I remember, and it's I liked the tone. It kind of felt like good Tim Burton, but its whole mechanic is that you can like exist in the shadows of walls, and like you go from a 3D platformer to all of a sudden you become a shadow on the wall and you're 2D platforming.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Yeah, wasn't that? It felt pretty unique at the time. This was 2013, so but that is definitely something that has been done quite a bit since then.
Wouldn't that have been around the same time as A Shadow's Tale or whatever it was called in other countries?
Yeah, I remember that game.
Anyway,
the Hedge Pig.
Not the that Pig. Shadow.
Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Not that Shadow being voiced by Keanu Reeves, apparently.
God damn.
Alex Armstrong again gives $2 and says, "Would Corn Kids 64 count as horror or more creepy?" I have no earthly fucking clue what that is, Alex Armstrong.
Yeah, me
I own this game. I own this game on Switch and I have not played it. It's, from what I know, it is a 3D platformer, but its whole thing is it's almost like I think the story behind it's almost supposed to be like Petscop, where it is like it is a game that has been unearthed that was made in the late 90s, and there's some what's going on around this game. It is an unfinished game, and there's something kind of spooky here. I believe.
A creepypasta? Is it infused
I believe so,
with
it's an actual game. It is a game
sauce?
you can purchase. Oh, little creepy Alfredo. Again, I do not know if any of that's correct. I just know I think that's what it's about, and I bought it on Switch, and I have not played it.
I find I have little time for non-tomato based pasta sauces. Although, actually, having said
like
that,
an olive oil, garlic olive oil.
No. Although, having said that, I'll go for a chicken pesto pasta meal. But
Ooh,
anything
like
creamy, anything creamy like an Alfredo, not my
heavy.
jam. It's certainly not my jam.
Huh. I'm a big fan of all pasta sauces, me.
Oh, look at Mr. Cosmopolitan.
Hey, cultured as fuck, me. I don't just eat chicken nuggets like Nicholas Calandra.
I wish my kids would eat chicken nuggets.
God damn.
I mean, we're running out of foods they'll actually eat. And we thought chicken nuggets, that's a slam dunk, surely. We even got dinosaur-shaped ones. They just never took to the fucking things.
Fuck. Maybe it's the dinos. Maybe they're scary.
Yeah.
Who knows? Rose Delta gives $5 and says, IMO, one of the best 3D Sonic implementations was a fan game called Green Hill Paradise. Based on Generations engine, it was way more momentum-based. Have to take your word for that, I guess, Rose Delta.
I feel like I have an allergy to fan games.
You like
I feel like I have an allergy to
congestion, don't you?
Sonic.
You have an
I
allergy to
think I might
Sonic?
make my I hate Sonic video. The more I think about it, the more
Well,
I hate Sonic like with a
that's,
burning passion.
that'll get the clicks. Like, just make that the thumbnail.
I just need to vent because I keep thinking it.
I hate Sonic, and you're a bad person for liking him. There you go.
No, it's I hate Sonic. Fuck you, Marty. And then I ship the video.
I don't know how I
hate
became a
Sonic,
resident
and if
Sonic
you
lover.
don't, you're stupid.
There we go. Exactly, Eric. Exactly.
Well, no, clickbait needs to be a question, doesn't it? So, are you stupid for liking Sonic? Yes, you are.
I'm writing
There
that
you go.
down, Yats. I'm writing that down right now.
Armed Karma gives $5 and says, I was wearing the Second Wind Founders shirt this weekend at Comic-Con and had people ask if I worked for you guys. Well,
Hey,
that'll
that's
happen,
great.
Armed Karma. I mean, if you go to Starbucks wearing a Starbucks uniform, you can't really get offended if people ask you for a mocha latte.
Yeah, but we don't own Comic Con.
We don't own this Comic Con. Whatever Comic Con you went to, we don't
All
own.
right. Flawed analogy, perhaps. Witticism gives $5 and says, are there 3D platformers with an emphasis on difficulty like Mega Man Stroke Cuphead? Returnal is the best example coming to mind right now.
Returnal feels more like an action game than a platform, right? I mean,
yeah,
I guess at a
it's more
certain
of
point,
I'd say it's more of a shooter.
Definitely.
yeah. I don't know what like the most difficult 3D platformers are. Like,
Well,
I don't know,
unless we count the aforementioned first Tomb Raider, where it's just really fucking janky to control.
sure, yeah. I'm trying to think in the same way that there's like crazy difficult 2D platformers. You know, there's like Celeste if you want to get everything, or yeah. I don't know.
Neon White if you
Being
shoot
together?
for like the platinum medals.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of the most difficult ones are difficult, probably not by design, but by the fact that they were made in like I'm sure there's like PS2 or PS1 and N64 platform, like Gex 3
Yeah.
might just be hard because
Yeah.
you're like, this is not well made.
Metroid Prime's pretty hard on the original GameCube controls because they kind of sucked.
Yeah, and that has
The ending levels. The ending levels of Chained Together are really rough. As much as it's
the end.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of that's a modern 3D platformer.
Although that's more hard difficult in a meme sort of way, meme clickbaity sort of way. Stream bait, one should say.
So does it get it's much harder than like what we played?
Oh, infinitely harder. Yeah, it makes the stuff we did look like child's play.
No, not for
and
me.
Like it tricks you into thinking, oh, this is what you're meant to do, and it's like
fun.
It's really grim.
On a scale of 0 to I want to be the guy, how tricky are we talking about here?
Oh, I'd say I want to be the guy. Yeah, I'd say I want to be the guy is harder.
Okay.
It's a lot of precision. And I think if we, you discovered Yachts that we could like reset to a specific, like the highest point. I reckon if I didn't use that with my friend, I would have just like shot my knees off because it's so frustrating. But we used that and we got it completed.
Jeez. Don't shoot your knees off. You'll need them.
I know, right?
Especially in a platformer.
I know, right?
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, an indie 3D platformer called Lunistis locks the plot behind 100% completion. Without it, it's just a fun kiddie platformer. Would you count that as bad?
Yeah, that seems pretty silly.
Depends what sort of player you are, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually own Lunisys on my Switch, and I haven't finished it, but I did just think it was a colorful 3D platformer. I didn't realize it's got like lore, deep and sad lore.
Deep lore.
Lunisys lore.
Is it like how in Ico you only know what half the characters are saying in the second playthrough?
Oh, Oh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like in Ico, when you play first, it's just gibberish. Like
Yeah.
they speak gibberish and the subtitles are gibberish, and then a second playthrough, the subtitles are in English.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Zelda
Mhm.
Wind Waker
That
did
is
something
fun.
similar. If you
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's
in the
right.
second in the Lobster Pajamas playthrough of Zelda Wind Waker, all the characters who talk indecipherable ancient Hyrule language talk plain
Mhm.
English, and it sort of gives the plot away earlier in the game.
Ah, I like that. I really like that.
In
Anything
Final
that can
Fantasy
shift a
X, you had
second
to learn
playthrough.
a language. You had to learn Albed. And when you talk to people
Mm.
speaking Albed originally, you can't understand what they're saying, and then slowly you learn the language. So
Oh,
shout out to
fucking
Waka.
hell, bed.
Shout out to Waka.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Move over. Chance of Xenar already been done.
Yeah, sort of. Fox D gives $5 and says spinner tax on apples can't hold a candle to Fuss Row Dar in a room full of cheese wheels. Still the gold standard.
Did Skyrim have like fun physics?
Yeah. There used to be like a classic exploit where you'd stick a pot on someone's head and then you could steal everything they owned because they couldn't see you.
Yeah, they can't see you. Yeah,
Oh, that's funny. That's good.
yeah. And you could first throw people over, and they'd ragdoll all over the place, and
Yeah.
all the
Oh
physics.
yeah, I guess. Yeah, every time I
Crazy.
got clubbed by a giant, and then my body was just like, whoop, like flew in the
Yep.
air. And,
Yeah, Giant Airlines, the classic.
fucking
Mm.
airlines.
Pinwheel Arts gives £5 and says, loved the jokes last week, so let's have some more. I'll start. Why did the Geordie cobbler get sacked? Because he got caught fucking a boot.
Yeah, that got me. That is because I'm British.
That's
What's
pretty
Geordie?
good.
What's a
Geordie
Geordie?
is an
someone-
area. It's like a regional accent.
Yeah,
Oh.
someone
In
from
England.
Newcastle is referred to as a Geordie.
Oh, he's a cobbler, and he fucked at the boot instead of fucking
Yeah,
the
he
boot.
fucked
He's
the boot.
fucking a boot.
Rose Delta, member for 4 months in the Green Gang, says, also SO to a story about my uncle for traversal. Shout out. That's what SO means. Shout out to a story about my uncle for traversal.
Oh, that is the
Story
name of
about
the
my
game. That's just not them telling a story about their uncle.
Rose Delta's story about their uncle.
I've heard of a story about my uncle, and I have not played it.
Well, never mind then.
It looks neat.
Permafrosty79. Permafrosty79, member for 5 months in Tipjar, and Brett Walden, member for 6 months in the Green Gang.
Hey.
2 green friends there. Double Finger gives €2, says, isn't every 3D Sonic game a horror 3D platformer? Lol, roll eyes, etc.
Shadows. This is the fall. This is the season of the shadow we're about to enter. So you better watch out. Remember when Sonic turned into a werehog? Or a hog wolf?
Oh, God.
Whatever way you want to say it.
You know, Sonic's original appeal was that he had an angry face and he was like an edgy teen. The fact that they then added another character who was even more an edgy teen, being Shadow the Hedgehog, sort of felt kind of redundant, amongst other things.
I like the original Sonic that had a pot belly. Like the original Pikachu that had a pot belly.
Yes, so
I want
that just meant he was pregnant. That's even edgier when you think about it.
Oh no,
Pregnant.
not hedge pig babies.
Oh no, hedge pig babies?
The worst kind of baby.
Long Shanks gives £10 and says, I've got the week off and I'm craving a game with a good narrative stroke story, old or new. Got any suggestions? Yes, several.
What remains of
Disco
Edith
Elysium.
Finch?
Go play Disco Elysium. There you go.
Yeah, Disco Elysium, Baldur's Gate 3.
If you're more interested in narrative gameplay interaction, play something like Return of the Obra Dinn.
Turn the Obra Dinn.
Yes.
I'm always going to recommend Pyre. Send your religious basketball players off to heaven.
Hidden Gems last week, Jess and I played The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the slow opening, but like the mysteries they've laid down really interested me, and I want to play more. So maybe check that out.
Yeah, I played the first half of it, and then I remember thinking, this is moving pretty slowly. I guess I'll stop. So
okay.
maybe I should go back to
I've
that.
only played 2 hours, so I don't know how it progresses.
Bleh. A superb owner, member for 9 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. And then Dr. Theo gives $2 and says, "What is a sequel that feels like a reboot?"
God of War.
Metal Gear Solid 5.
God of War, Metal Gear Solid 5. Yeah. Doom 2016.
Mm-hmm. Wait, does Doom
Anything
2016 count as a sequel? I don't think Doom 2016 is a sequel to anything. I think it's just plain reboot.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Yeah, God of War might be the best suggestion then,
All right then.
or the best example.
The brain. Oh, hang on. Karula Cowboy. Oh, hang on. I've missed a few. Oh, I jumped to the bottom again. It keeps doing that.
I think you're at Fox D. I can read it if you need it.
No, I got it. Wait, Fox D.
Yeah,
I've got number 10 after Double Finger. Just want to say, Sonic games really shouldn't be that hard unless you're playing as recklessly as possible.
I didn't even have that one written down. I don't know what happened. That was on me. You're doing great, Yahtzee.
Well, aren't you kind of supposed to be playing recklessly in Sonic, though? Aren't you supposed to be playing with a certain amount of gay abandon as you fling yourself into space? Yeah, gotta go fast, exactly.
You have a choice. Like,
yeah, I mean,
the game just breaks if you try and take it.
When I think about playing,
pace, right?
when I think about not playing Sonic games recklessly, I think of the Underwater Ruins level in the first Sonic game, which was a pain in the ass because you couldn't go fast at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that just felt like a misstep.
Yeah.
They were like
Sonic as a whole. Yep.
Yeah. Like we can't base the whole game around going fast and doing stunts. We're a platformer. We've got to have some very annoying bits where you have to avoid spikes in a cave. That tends to happen on like the cutting edge of game design. I remember when Thief 1 came out, and the developers were all like, "We refuse to believe that someone would just like a game that's all stealth. Let's throw in a bunch of levels where you have to escape from monsters as well."
Yeah.
And everyone hated them. And the next game was just, yeah, all right, here's just a game that's all stealth.
You were mistaken.
Imagine just doing something well. Like, do one thing really well rather than
Yeah.
one thing and then 5 other things tacked on just because.
Yeah. It's a useful skill.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm all over the place.
Oh, I think you're Fox D.
Yeah, now I'm on Fox D. Fox D gets $5 and says, "Funkos are everything wrong with nerd culture. Nobody ties their identity up in brands like nerds, and it's why I take offense to being called one."
I don't want to. There's plenty of good people who buy Funkos. That's why I wanted to make it very, very clear that is my personal thought on Funkos.
Are they good people because they buy Funkos, or in spite of the fact that they buy Funkos?
They're probably not related. You could be a good person and also buy Funkos, but I don't think buying or not buying.
What would be if you
line.
Okay, Marty? If someone bought a Funko Pop, what would be a 100% positive usage of that Funko Pop after they bought it?
What if what if you designed a character who got a Funko Pop and you wanted one in your office?
I would buy a Funko Pop of a character that I'd made.
Yeah,
but you would be the only person who would have a reasonable reason to want to own that Funko Pop.
Yeah.
I think there's a line, right? I don't mind people who have them. I mind people who have them still boxed and they have a wall of them. Like, then I'm all right.
I was never keep my toys in the box kind of guy.
What possible use are they? They're so flimsy and cheaply made.
I mean, I'm just. My thing is, I don't have a leg to stand on because I look to the left and I just have 50 amiibo.
At least Kinder Surprise toys take some assembly. At least there's a little stimulation to be gained from that.
Do you feel the same about amiibo? Do you judge me for having my Chibi Robo and my Joker?
No,
absolutely.
From the hit game Persona, we have talked about Persona.
They also have in-game usage in certain games. You know, you've not kept them in the box like they're a valuable piece of.
Oh, definitely!
Art.
It's immediately rip the box.
Oh
from
yes,
recycling bin. Yeah.
Well, moving on. Camden Ninja gives $2 and says Sonic 3D Blast ends with an awful love ballad. 10 out of 10. Ooh.
Does it?
Oh, let's make a short list of games whose end credits have awful love ballads on them. Symphony of the Night, that's another one.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Pokemon.
I think King's Quest 6 has one.
One of the
Pokemon
Silent
Violet
Hills.
and Scarlet.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's got an
Pokemon
Ed
Love?
Sheeran song on the end.
Get
I
out
wouldn't
of
describe
town.
I wouldn't describe any of the Silent Hill ending songs as being love ballads.
Maybe I don't know what a love ballad is. Maybe I don't know what love is.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Just
don't.
can't see it. You need to feel it.
A superb owner gives $5 and says, "Raise your hand if you've played the free Celeste sequel-ish 3D platformer that the Celeste devs released earlier this year."
I didn't know it existed until Games Done Quick a couple months ago, and I downloaded it after that.
I have not
Pretty cool.
played it.
Pretty cool.
Double Finger gives €5 and says, "Oh my god, I looked up Power Stone, and while I didn't play the game, I remember watching the anime way back. Been trying to remember the name for ages."
Oh yeah, there was like a one season
An
anime. Forgot about that. Yeah, it was like 20 episodes or something.
Cool.
There's a lot of things that get adapted into anime that don't make it into the West. Mangas as well.
I think Capcom was doing a lot of animated stuff at the time, so they did Street Fighter anime. They had Mega Man animated series. There you go. 2 examples.
There you go. Senu gives $4.99 and says, "Yahtzee, please keep banging that infamous on modern consoles drum." Certainly will. I'll keep banging it until someone from Sony with the kind of influence to make it happen hears it.
There you go. Mark
Hey,
Cerny's going to get on stage tomorrow.
Influential Sony person, get on it. Bloodborne as well.
Bloodborne has to be literally they lost the code and they are too.
No, I'm almost certain it's the physics of the game is tied to the FPS, and which is locked on consoles. So when you port it to PC, it fucks the game. I think
none of that sounds insurmountable as a problem.
Someone could fix that, right? Mark Cerny, get on it.
I agree, only because it's Bloodborne, and that would sell like absolute hotcakes and would make them $1 bajillion. So even if it cost them millions to fix that issue, it would be worth it, you know?
Hell, just get the players to mod it. That's their
I
job.
think it's playable on PC now. I saw some people streaming it on PC, like
emulated?
Yeah, like all janked up. Yeah.
Yeah. Carmenut gives $2 and says nothing. It's their third super on a live stream. Like good old them.
Thank you.
Geldon Yittich gives $5 and says, "If you made a platformer, what would you most want to challenge with the jumping challenge? The timing, the puzzling capability, or something else?" I would like to make something in more of a neon whitey direction, I suppose.
Ooh.
Something more about speed, challenge, and refinement.
Yeah, that was one of those rare games where I could feel getting better at.
I did the recording and the editing for your neon white video, and I had such a blast playing that. It was so good.
It's so fun. Yeah,
it's a great game. My game of the year. It came out, I believe.
I think so.
SG004 Music gives $10 and says, "What's your perfect Sunday?" Knickerbocker Glory. Lol.
Not having traveler's sickness, which is what I had.
Yeah, that's an important one. Yeah, traveling sickness is bad.
Traveling sickness is grim.
If I've got a free day, like the wife's taking the kids to the grandma's house, my usual attitude is try to do as many things as possible because it feels like the day is longer then. So, you know, I'll go on a bike ride, I'll do some shopping, I'll have lunch at a restaurant, maybe take out some library books.
You're both fortunate you don't like American football because that's just what my Sundays are now, and it just feels like a waste.
American football is
other for 9 hours. 9 hours gone.
I got taken to a high school American football game once. The game seems to consist of a bunch of kids running around for a bit, and then everything stops and people argue about how far the ball has traveled for about half an hour.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And then they do it again.
Yeah.
I like the ceremony. Like, we very famously, Marty, spoken about me going to that winners parade. But like coming to America and watching some. Not that I'm crazy into the sport, but all of the food and the prep to watch the Super Bowl and stuff. That's kind of nice. I guess it's because I'm British and that's kind of just like an American thing to do, right? But it's still nice. But is it like every Sunday for you, Mai? Like, is that a common day for the games to be happening?
So this was week 1, so yes, Sunday is where a majority of the football games are, and yesterday was the first Sunday of the season.
And this is the build up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So this is there's 17 weeks, and then the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So it'll be pretty much every Sunday now till.
I saw February. That Kendrick Lamar's going to be playing the opening.
Man,
this one.
Bad for Drake.
Hell yeah.
Shots fired from a Super Bowl.
Who has a lyric which says "big as the Super Bowl"? Get fucked.
Of course, culturally, the British are no one to throw stones when it comes to being obsessed with sports.
Sure.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Although football, personally, I'm not into any of that kind of shit. Although I watch the Olympics if it's on, because that's like the triumph of the individual human spirit. I ain't getting any interest in team games.
Fuck friendship. Fuck teamwork.
Yeah. I'm an objectivist. I suppose. Fox D gives $5 and says, wearing a red shirt and car keys in a Target is fun. Bonus points if a manager tries to scold you for standing around and you yell, I quit.
That's pretty funny.
That's great.
Karuta Cowboy, member for 9 months in Ad Free Podcast, says, off topic, but I started Symphony of the Night for the first time recently. Just wanted to say it's as great as everyone says it is. Yeah, it would be if the way you use healing items wasn't completely mental.
Yeah.
You have to equip a healing item to one of your hands, press the attack button to throw the healing item onto the floor, and then walk over the healing item for it to heal you.
It is nonsense.
It's mental.
Nonsense.
And that's like, mechanically, I'd almost say just for that alone, something like Aria of Sorrow might be my favorite Castlevania game.
I was about to say, did they fix that for the Game Boy Advance games?
Yes, and the DS ones. DS Castlevania games, almost all bangers.
Yeah, those are the collection is out now. So those are available on modern platforms.
Oh yes. Although I usually play Dawn of Sorrow emulated, so I can download a ROM hack that removes those bloody stupid drawing rune puzzles from the boss fights.
Oh yeah, I think they've changed it to where you just have to hit, like, each of the corners are just a button, so you just have to be like triangle, square, X, triangle.
Touch screen gimmicks. Yeah. Ooh, we've got a touch screen. No, we've got to work it into every bloody game. That's me being Nintendo making the 3DS.
Yeah, that sounded about right.
That's a great Miyamoto impression.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I'm going to make a 3D engine that will enchant a generation. The Brain Sturgeon gives €2 and says, Yahtzee, what's your favourite sea shanty? Well, I can't go wrong with the classics, I'd say. So if I were called upon to sing a sea shanty, I'd probably go with Blow the Man Down.
Okay. That's like an old. That's one we all know.
Yes. With a hey ho, blow the man down.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Etc. Although, what's the? I do quite like the Wellerman. Hey ho, the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum.
It technically isn't a sea shanty though, because of how it's put together.
You could probably, if you could imagine a bunch of sailors on an old-fashioned sailing ship singing it together, it's
well, no, because sea shanties are made specifically to pull rigging and to coordinate an entire boat together. Like that's what they're designed.
There needs to be like
there's a meter and timing how they're sung to coordinate. They have actual function. They're not just songs that are sung on boats.
Well, they didn't spend 100% of their time pulling rigging. Maybe they had songs they sung when they weren't doing that. The
definition of a sea shanty. I've got a video on it. I'll send it to you.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Like that.
Yes.
So, what do you sing when you're flogging someone?
I'm a Barbie girl.
I'm a Barbie girl. Swinging my cat of nine tails. A superb owner gives $2 and says, Marty, is it still the year of the Gex Assance?
Yeah, it's a big year. We got the Crocassance obviously coming with Croc coming back. We're in the midst of the Gexassance, although Gex hasn't been dated yet. The Gex trilogy remastered, so I don't know if it can technically be Gexassance, but we're hot and heavy in the Crocassance right now, which is a good time to be alive.
Who the fuck was
I don't know
crying
why
out
the
for Croc?
Assance names are really getting me.
It's great because you just added to the end of anything. Who was crying out for Croc or Gex? I think for the goofs, I'm just really curious about Gex because I think some of those jokes are not.
There
gonna
were a
age
few
well.
Gex games. I understand
was
crying out
3
for
of them,
Gex.
yeah.
It's crying out for Croc that confuses me.
I think maybe it was big in Europe. Do Europeans like Croc?
I don't know. Maybe.
Some.
I guess if you just had a PlayStation and you didn't have a Nintendo, so you couldn't play like the good goods, you had to settle for like Croc.
Yeah, but if you
Well, I
had a
guess Spyro.
PlayStation, there are much better platformers to be
You could play
Croc,
fucking
yeah.
Crash Bandicoot. You could be
Yeah.
playing on your PlayStation.
Crash Bandicoot, any of the Toy Story games,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spyro.
moving into Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, Bruce Willis's Apocalypse.
No one wants to play Bruce
Yeah,
Willis.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
Why
sold
would
3 million
anyone not
copies.
want
There's
to
a lot of
play Bruce
Crocaholics
Willis
out there.
Apocalypse?
A lot of
Crocaholics.
Crocaholics.
Crocaholics. What do you know?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Summerhays gives $5 Canadian and says, Yahtzee, any luck with the derelict PDA bug in Starstruck Vagabond? I'm not sure which specific one you mean, although I have fixed a lot of bugs in Star Trek Vagabond, and none of them have been posted in the Discord lately, so I'm officially not thinking about it anymore.
You did it.
Don't miss... I was about to say don't miss buying it on the Steam sale, but the Steam sale's over now. It ended
fuck.
it ended an hour and a half ago. The Steam Space Exploration Fest.
Well, go buy it full price right now, guys. Buck it up. Go do that.
Yeah. Pay me some money. Why don't you? Support me in my enterprises. You stingy gits. Anyway, Cry gives $2 and says, dentist appointment over and I survived. Applause.
I'm proud of you, Cry. I hope you didn't cry.
Did they take all your teeth?
Oh no.
And then Goo Bomber comes in with $2 and says, I'm late. Did Yards like or hate Astro Bot?
Oh my god, he gave so many opinions.
I haven't played it yet. I'm going to play it after lunch. You can find out in the upcoming Fully Emblematic review, which will probably be in like 7 weeks or something.
It's not positive I'm going to delete it from the back end.
Got to get through Star Wars Outlaws and Space Marine 2 first.
A lot of games. Big games coming. You know what I'm excited for? Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Oh,
yeah.
hell
That's
yeah.
what
I'm
Comes out like
excited
3D.
because when your grandma looks at you playing and says, oh, you being Zelda again, this time you don't have to correct her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to say I'm Link, you old bitch. You could just
Yeah.
say, yes, I am Zelda.
Yes, Mima. I am Zelda.
Yes, Mima. I am Zelda.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, you bringing up judging by the cover gave me an idea. Why haven't there been an ARG where one puzzle solution is hidden on the game's cover? There fucking has, Dr. Theo. The original Metal
Here.
Gear Solid did that.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, right here.
Well,
There's a
that really
codec-
confused
codec
some
column.
people. There was like one character says, oh yes, the code for the codec you need to enter is on the back of the CD box. And some
Yeah.
people thought they were talking about a CD box in the game, but it wasn't. It was the actual CD box.
Yeah.
Ooh, meta.
Meryl's codec number is on the back. If you rented the game, I don't know what you did. I don't know how you got through that.
Yeah, ate shit, I think.
It just ate a big old pile of shit.
Yeah. Humane Shield gives 199 says, Jamate, after watching you last DD, I want to restart my World of Warcraft Troll Hunter, though I lost my account when I quit before Wrath of the Witch King.
Well, I'm glad you lost your account. Hunters, if you play Hunter, I just lay down and die. Feign death IRL.
I only ever played Mage in World of Warcraft because I couldn't be asked joining groups with anyone, and mages are pretty good for like soloing.
Yeah,
'Cause
like
you-
blinking and teleporting around, having
Yeah.
a nice elemental and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you do like 90% of your damage before the dude even gets to you.
Yeah, you do one cast and just absolutely
Yeah.
obliterate them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you say one cast, but it's like Ice Bolt, Frost Nova, Nova things, Firebolt, Fireball, Fireball,
Mhm.
Fireball. Oh, you're next to me now. Frost Nova, blink away, more
Blink away,
fireballs.
boom. Super satisfying.
Yeah.
But also, fuck
There's that-
hunters.
And there's that one spell you create like 4 mirror images of yourself, and I was taking down like raid bosses by myself with that thing.
It's satisfying as hell, right?
Yeah. Damn it! I don't want to get back into World of Warcraft.
Let's
Piss off.
fucking play yachts. Come on, let's make a guild.
No.
No, that would be
I
a
got-
twist. A 2024
No,
twist.
I got shit to do. I got a family.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
spend my-
play.
Sundays.
I spend my evenings vegging out.
Yeah,
Although
you veg out
my
too?
We
wife's
could be
playing-
raiding yachts. We could be taking down raid bosses. I'm just saying.
Although my wife's been playing way too much Elder Scrolls Online, so maybe that would be fitting revenge.
Let's get her
Get
into
her-
WoW.
Let's
Come on.
Wow.
Let's go.
Have your
Let's
kids
go.
farm gold?
Piss off. I don't need to be less productive right now.
Okay, fair.
I'm between books and indie game projects.
Sounds like a great time to play a game.
No, it isn't.
Oh, never mind. Sorry. I thought it was.
Armed Karma gives $5 and says, I had meant to say was at Comic Con to recruit for my game dev school, so wearing a second wind shirt was helpful.
Oh.
Is it? Are
hell
game
yeah.
dev schools like Kung Fu dojos now? You
I
recruit a
hope
bunch of
so.
students, and then you like take on another rival game dev school, and the winner gets to take the sign from out the front gate.
Yeah, you do like a game jam, like
Like
kill the rivals. So cool.
The Brain Sturgeon gives €2. Says, I sing Blow the Man Down with my 2-year-old. You know what the song I sing to my 4-year-old? Just because it was one of the few songs I could remember all the lyrics to. I sing Only You. Because I remember the lyrics from the end credits of Batman Arkham City when the Joker sings it to Batman.
You, yeah. a good
Only
one.
That's nice.
You. And then it shows up in Far Cry 5 as well.
That's also just
So
a very
now-
sweet song to sing to your child.
And yeah, and now she just expects it. Like every night I have to sing her Only You. And I'm sure my other child in the other bunk keeps their feelings to themselves.
Only them? What about me?
What about only me?
Yeah, well, she's not
Oh.
quite old enough to pass it at this point, but I'm sure it'll
Soon.
cause trouble at some point.
Then you'll have to start singing
Ah,
just the two of us, but referencing them rather than
Yes.
you.
yeah, just the two of you.
Yeah, just the two of you. You can make
Yeah.
it if you try.
RoboNob the Snob gives €20. Says, if it wasn't mentioned, I hate platformers that rely on power-ups, but all they do is just acting as glorified keys rather than letting you experiment. Basically, Bolano Banano Land. Also, hi, Jamate, you beautiful soul. Meaning Balan Wonderworld, I assume.
Alan is a
Oh, I see.
wonder woman.
Okay.
Yeah, those
Yeah, I
were
can dig
those
that.
were pretty bad. Yeah. Agreed. Power-ups are a thing that can very easily be used for good or
Yeah.
for evil.
Do you want to be Mario or do you want to be Symphony of the Night? Pick one. A power-up either opens up more of the map or it just gives you an advantage in the moment. Pick
We turn
one.
to mist. Every game
Pick
I should
one,
be able
you
to turn
bum.
into mist and go through gates.
RoboNop the Snob then gives another €5 and says, and guys, stop doing these podcasts while I'm recording. I can never catch up in time.
Sorry.
Well, maybe
plan
you
it
should stop
specifically
recording
for
while
that.
we do podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, to
I
be
mean,
fair,
you're
we're
us.
doing it at the same time, same day of the week for several years.
SG004 Music gives $5 and says, apparently the new expansion was created by Quentin Tarantino. Now,
And said,
now
WoW
what game are we
expansion.
talking about here?
Sounds like the WoW expansion. Is there feat stuff?
Yeah,
in
if
the
they
WoW
said
expansion?
expansion, probably WoW, but I'm not sure what they're referring to as it being made
Feat
by
stuff?
Quentin.
Because he always puts feat stuff. Is there a lot of feat in the WoW expansion? I didn't notice any feat.
No, I didn't notice a lot of feet. Story wise, it's not like it starts with the end or anything. Like there's lots of manipulation
Is-
and actual intrigue and stuff. But
Is there any story still untold
oh yeah.
in World of Warcraft?
I explained in my last video. They moved away from it and they butchered it, but they've brought back Chris Metzen, who was one of their previous directors, who's come back to span a story across 3 expansions rather than having one solo story in one expansion, they're going to spread it across 3 so they can tell a more unified story. So I have high hopes for what they can do.
Well, how
It's
do they expect new players to be able to jump in at this stage? Ha ha ha! Just
Good
kidding.
question.
No new
Ask
players
Final
are
Fantasy
starting.
14.
No new players are starting well. What the fuck am I talking about?
What are you talking about? You, your wife, and your children are going to start well.
Yeah,
No, we fucking well aren't.
we're going to start a gold farming guild, Yachts. What are you on about?
I'm going to sever my own hands if I feel myself wanting to do that. Anyway, Humane Shield gives $4.99 and says, yes, but Rimmer Directive 271 states just as clearly, no chance, you metal bastard. That's a line from Red Dwarf, although I forget precisely which episode.
Rimmer Directive.
It might be season 4.
Sounds like a season 4 line.
You don't know.
It was
And then Toad Wizard, member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says, I love Jay's pedantry about shanties, so I don't have to.
You're welcome. I am a dick.
Oh, and then one more just came in at the very last moment. Nick Knoll gives $5 and says, off-topic question, have any of you guys played Universal Paperclips? Might make for a really good design delve.
I don't actually know.
No, I have
No.
not. What's that then? Is it a game about paperclips?
2017 American incremental game. The user plays the role of an AI program to produce paperclips.
Sounds riveting. But then I would have said the same thing about Papers, Please if you just described it in an elevator pitch.
I'll check that out, Nick. If you think that'll be a good design delve, I'll
A clicker game
my
with
radar.
a sinister, funny underbelly.
Okay, click a game. I stopped listening.
I will check that out. Thank you, Nick.
Huh. Well, it's not on Steam.
Even more sinister. Oh my god.
Oh
That's
my goodness.
very sinister.
All right, well, that's all the super chats. Thank you very much for listening to the Windbreakers podcast, as always. I'm going off now to play Astro Bot, I think.
Yay.
Maybe after I've had some lunch. And then later in the week, you can enjoy, firstly, an episode of Fully Ramblomatic on the subject of Star Wars Outlaws, that game that everyone thinks is really good and has been praising like it is a very important landmark title in the history of the medium. And then, of course, I'll be doing my Yahtzee Try stream on the same day in the afternoon. And I'm going to have a semi-Ramblomatic on Thursday. And this one will be about the subject
God, what was it? I read it so long ago.
I do this all the time.
Oh, games you love but you don't play.
Oh, yes, it's a good one this week. Not that they're ever not a good one, but this is a particularly good one, I think. On the subject of games I really like despite never playing them. You two plug your shit now. Jay first.
Design delve on my what Java had pointed out to me was a over half my life addiction to World of Warcraft just came out. Talking about why and the kind of psychology behind that. So check that out. I'm currently working on my next one, and later this week we will have an episode of Dev Heads on Friday, which we're going to be joined by Boubacar Salim from Hollywood and game dev fame. So really interested to sit down with them. They're a friend of the podcast, so we've been wanting to get them on for a long time.
Remind us what people would know him from.
They'd known from like TV wise, Raised by Wolves.
Yeah, he was also in this,
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, he was in season 2 of House of the Dragon,
and was also been in a bunch of Assassin's Creed games, voice acting, and made the game Zao.
Yeah,
which is a love letter to his father. Yeah,
he voiced. He played Bayek in AC Origins.
Yes,
the lead of AC Origins.
A true Renaissance man. Very excited to sit down and talk about the industry and just all facets of that. So yeah, check that out on Friday with Mikey, Tina, and Boubacar. And other than that, yeah, potentially some other streams and stuff, but nothing that comes to mind right now. But that's me.
Cool. Yeah, I think later today you'll have. Were you part of that video, the big edited video on the whatever game you guys played last week?
Concord, not Concord.
No.
That's the The terrible one that got
Deadshot.
cancelled.
Yeah. Deadlock.
The Deadlock. Yes, I
Deadlock.
was involved in that. Yeah.
I believe that video is going to be going up later today. A little convo with y'all, chatting about your thoughts on that game. And then tonight, normal time, 6 p.m. Central, will be Hidden Gems. The crew will be playing Self Loss, which is a new sort of moody puzzle platformer something. Art looks very neat.
Does it involve moving to the right until the game tells you to stop?
I don't know. I just know the thumbnail, and the thumbnail looks nice.
Okay.
So it kind of looks like a little bit like Below, or like Ashen. Do you remember what that game Ashen?
Oh yeah.
Ashen.
From the developers of Flintlock.
Yes.
Terrible subtitle. Siege of Dawn.
Yeah. Looks like Ashen. And then so that'll be tonight. I don't believe we have any streams tomorrow. And the normal stuff this week. Should have Firelink, Yahtzee tries.
All right.
Don't make cry. All that stuff.
And we had one last super chat come in the last minute from JTC Glass On, who gives $5 and says, "Finally caught one live. Only just JTC Glass On. My unpopular 3D opinion is Sonic Advance 2 is actually a good Sonic platformer stuck with a crappy mech stroke scavenger hunt game." Sonic Adventure 2, sorry.
That's the other 2/3 of the game, which is tough. Because a third of the game is Sonic, a third of the game is mech, and a third of the game is scavenger hunt.
Mm.
Well, it's an adventure.
That is true.
It's got to have multiple game mechanics to be an adventure.
It's not an adventure. We did it. I'm proud of all of us.
Yep.
Is that? Just thinking about it, maybe that's what defines an action adventure game. A game that has multiple gameplay mechanics. Tell me I'm wrong.
Could be. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe.
Yeah.
Smash that follow
Like
button.
in Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Okay. See you all later then.
Everyone.
Bye. Shake